Hey everybody, it's time. Go get your snack, get your hydration, and get ready for Phenomenal Woman Rise Up with Terry K. Brown.
Well, good evening, everybody. This is Terry K. Brown with Phenomenal Woman Rise Up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good that you joined us this evening. Hey, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because the more subscriptions we get, the easier it will be to get to this channel on Sunday evening. So I just want to also put a shout out for Terry Milliner for doing the music. I mean, don't you just love that little catchy tune? I love it. And he just was so grateful to do that tune. And then our voiceover is Mark David Ribbons. He has such a pronoun voice. I'm so glad that he agreed to do that also. So shout out to both of them today. So let's get down to business today. There's going to be a much needed conversation this evening. It's going to be real life talk, and we're going to be talking about race relations. Now, I put a lot of thought into this evening because I wanted to go a couple different ways, and I just decided, okay, I'm just going to be informative. I'm going to give my opinion. I have a couple videos that I'd like to show of people that I talked to, and then that's going to be it. And we can leave comments in the comment section. And then I think midweek, I'm going to come back on and talk about some comments that I heard from people and how people feel about this touchy subject all of a sudden. And I had a different show plan for tonight. But after that mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, and unless you've been living under a rock, you should have heard about the shooting in Buffalo, New York, where a young man who was 18 years old, and he's a white supremacist. He believed that he needed to eliminate Black people because he believed in the replacement theory, that Black people were trying to replace the white people in America, and he had to kill some of them. He tried to kill quite a few. He did kill 10, and that's how that happened. It was a horrible thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with a little bit of information and definitions about some of the things that I'm going to be talking about. Because if you don't understand what it's about and you just think you know what it's about, you'll be confused, okay? So I want to give a definition from Britannica.com about the history of racism. It states this: the belief that humans may be divided into separate and exclusive biological entities called races, and that some races are innately superior to others. The term is also applied to political, economic, or legal institutions and systems that engage in or perpetuate discrimination on the basis of race or otherwise reinforce racial inequalities in wealth and income, education, healthcare, civil rights, and other areas. That's what the history of racism definition is. Now, for those of you who didn't catch what I was saying, basically, this is a belief that human beings should be divided into separate and exclusive areas that are political, your economic areas, different legal institutions, and incomes and education should be separate for different races. And races are like white, Black, Asian, Jewish, Muslim, Arab. Those are different races. So I think we can all gather that the racism is when you try to separate these human beings because of their race and have inequalities among these human beings because of their race and their race only. That is what racism is. So I do believe that there are some people who do not understand what racism is. So that's a very good definition of it. Now, I also want to give some information about a few other terms that you need to know in order to be a participant in these discussions regarding race relations. Now, Britannica's definition of anti-Semitism is discrimination against Jews as a religious or racial group. Nazi anti-Semitism, which culminated in the Holocaust, had a racist dimension in that it targeted Jews because of their supposed biological characteristics. Even those who had themselves converted to other religions or whose parents were converts. So anti-Semitism is discrimination against people of the religion of Judaism. So these are considered Jews, and people are discriminated against, and that's what anti-Semitism is. They are discriminated against because of their Jewish religion. Okay, so people who do not understand what anti-Semitism is, it is people who are discriminated against because of their Jewish religion. All right, okay. So the next definition I'm going to give everybody is from CNN.com, and it's the definition for white supremacy. CNN states that white supremacy is beliefs and ideas purporting natural superiority of the lighter skin or white human races over other racial groups. In contemporary usage, the term white supremacist has been used to describe some groups supporting ultra-nationalist, racist, or fascist doctrines. White supremacist groups have often relied on violence to achieve their goals. So for those of you who do not understand what white supremacist is, the gist of it is an idea that because you are of lighter skin or white, you are superior over other racial groups, human people. You're superior over them because you are white in color. And let's continue with our definitions. The next definition is replacement theory. Now, this is also from CNN.com. So replacement theory, oh boy. Okay, you know what? Before we talk about replacement theory, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. See, this is a very sensitive topic, race relations. And sometimes, I guess it's because it's very dear to my heart, I have to slow myself down so that I don't get ahead of myself in this discussion. But to go back about racism, anti-Semitism, and white supremacy, I just want to say that as a Black woman of age, I was born in 1960, and I grew up in a neighborhood where I went to a school in East Washington, Pennsylvania. Now, this school that I went to was predominantly white. We lived in an area where we were like on the cuff, and this was a so-called upper class white neighborhood. And we were one of few Black students that went there. And I tell you, I got a really better education than the students who went to the Washington School District schools. And I'm just saying that. Now, I don't want to go back and say why, but I also want to say in 1970s, when I was a student at Charles Dickens Elementary School, that was in Cleveland General School District. It was right on 131st, excuse me, near Union, which was back then Alexander Hamilton Junior High used to be like right cat a corner across. But Charles Dickens was a school that was in a predominantly Black neighborhood. And because I did pretty well in my studies, I was put in the major works program. Now, most of the children that were in the major works program got pretty good grades, but I will say that we had smaller classrooms and we got a pretty good education in the major works program. Now, when I went to junior high school, I did not go to Alexander Hamilton High School. I went to Woodbury Junior High, which in 1972, I believe it was a junior high. I don't think it's a junior high anymore. I think it's a middle school. But I went to Woodbury Junior High, which is in the Shaker School District. Now, back in 1972, there were very few people of color in Shaker Heights. It was predominantly white. We had some Black people like the Jim Browns and the Leverts, and then people who were like doctors or professionals usually lived in Shaker Heights, people of color also. So I went to Woodbury Junior High School, but because I came from Cleveland Public Schools, I had to take an exam to see where I could be placed. Well, I believe because I was in the major works program, I ended up placing an AP Math in Shaker Schools. And I placed in AP English too, I believe. It was so long ago. But I know I placed in AP Math. I've always been good in math. And because I placed so high coming from Cleveland schools, I had to retake the test. And I took it again, and I still placed in AP Math. And I was the only Black student in the AP Math class in 1972 at Woodbury Junior High School. And I must say that there were a lot of times where my hand was raised and I did not get called on to ask a question. Now, I felt like at the time it was because I was Black, and I was assumed that to not be important enough to get a question answered. Now, people say that Black people throw the race card because something doesn't happen their way or they don't get noticed or this, that, and the other. But like I said, I'm a woman of a certain age, and I have experienced this history of racism that I got right here, that I looked up. I am the storybook that's in this history of racism. I've been divided. I was always divided when I was coming up because I was very smart, and I am a woman of color. And a lot of times I was mistaken of being pushy or whatever because I knew just as much as some of the white students in the school. Now, I'm just saying this is my experience. But people who say that there's not racism in America, you've had your head in the sand, because America was built on the division of white people from Black people. And I know history is not really taught properly in school, but if you don't know that, I'm here to let you know. There was white people and there was Black people. You know, there was a law that was built in America to separate the white people from the Black people. It just was like that. Now, there's not a law anymore, but there was a law put in place to make sure that people of color knew you were not as good as the people who were white. That is racism. Anytime, like it says here, that humans are divided into separate and exclusive entities called races, and that some races are superior to others, that is called racism. Okay? So I really am offended when I hear that there's no racism in America. There is racism in America. Now, I've never been overseas, so I don't know nothing about overseas, but I've lived in America for 61 years, and there is definitely racism in America. So we can just go on and agree, we can touch and agree to that, so that this conversation is not taken as, oh, this Black girl right here is just complaining about Black people not treated right, this and that and other. It's not that. There is racism in America, and there is anti-Semitism, and there's a belief in white supremacy. Okay, so this discussion is valid. This discussion is going to be painful for some people, but this discussion is much needed because these are real things going on. Okay, it's not that people's feelings are hurt. It's not that people of color think that they should get owed anything, even though we should be owed some things, and that's a whole different discussion. But it's just the truth. It's just the truth. And until everybody who does not really believe in racism is truthfully informed that there is racism and acknowledges it, then it cannot be fixed. Because if you cannot acknowledge a problem, then you cannot deal with it honestly. So anybody who just does not believe that there is racism in America, get informed. Get informed so that we can talk about this and that we can fix it, because we can fix this. People say, oh, it'll never change. I don't believe that. People didn't think that slavery would ever not be slavery, but things change. Things change when people take the time to acknowledge an issue and then sit down and talk honestly about the actual issue, and then work together to make the issue not harmful. Nothing can stop anybody from fixing something if they really want to. Okay, so I'm going to move on, because I don't want to just keep going about the same thing. Now, I do want to talk about the definition of a hate crime, because, gee, when I heard about what happened in Buffalo, first of all, the gun thing is just beyond me. I can't understand why Congress cannot figure out how to ban the assault weapons from just being sold. That's just my feeling. But it's like, really, how many school children have to be killed? How many people have to be gunned down in the movie theater? How many people can go to the grocery store on a Sunday afternoon and end up dead because there's machine guns that can be bought? This young man was 18 years old and he bought this gun, and he went in and shot these people. Okay, that's a whole nother show though. But the definition from CNN.com about hate crimes is: a hate crime is harassment, intimidation, or physical violence that is motivated by a bias against characteristics of the victim considered integral to his social identity, such as his race, ethnicity, or religion. Remember when I was talking about anti-Semitism against the Jewish religion, about racism against people of color, and white supremacy against people who were of non-white color? So some relatively broad hate crime laws also include sexual orientation and mental or physical disability among the characteristics that define a hate crime. So we all know that people have hate crimes against people who are homosexual or LGBTQ and people who are disabled or people who are mentally challenged, hate crimes. That's what a hate crime is. What happened in Buffalo was clearly a hate crime. It was murder. It was planned. It was specific against a certain group of people that were Black. And that is a race. So that is considered a hate crime. This has happened all too often. People that hate another person because they're different. That's a hate crime. Well, I pose a question to everybody. Now, I'm brown skinned. I'm a brown skinned girl. Now, I have issues with certain people, but it's usually because of their nasty attitude or how they treated me. And then sometimes I'll admit, I'll be like, that white girl really ticked me off. She thinks she's better than me or nothing. But that's because I took it way too far. Because basically what I didn't like about that person was their attitude or how they treated me. The mature Terry knows that. The Terry who feeds into the hate will say, oh, no, that white girl, that's hate. That's hate towards the color of her skin. Now, if I went out and got a machine gun and shot her because she was white, that is a hate crime. What if I woke up tomorrow and I'm white? Am I going to hate myself because I'm white? What if you're a white person and you woke up tomorrow and your skin was darker than mine? Are you going to hate yourself because you're Black? Do you think it can't happen? You're not God. You never know what is going to happen. So when you start talking about you hate a certain race, you hate this, you hate that person, you hate this person, be careful, because you could wake up tomorrow and be that person. Then you'll have to hate yourself. Are you going to go out and shoot and kill yourself because you woke up and you're white instead of Black today? Are you going to wake up and kill yourself because you're white, you're Black instead of white today? That's how silly hate crime is. We are all human beings. And I'm telling you, it's got to come down to that, America, okay? Because we're going to end up killing each other off. That's what the enemy wants us to do, to hate each other, when we're all human beings. That's a little piece of point in humanity that we must understand in order to get this situation fixed. Because we can't just hate like this and think it's going to be okay. We can't eliminate people because of their race. We can't eliminate people because of their religion. We can't eliminate people because they're homosexual. We don't have the right of life and death. We don't have that right. And yeah, I probably sound a little edgy right now because I have children, I have grandchildren, and I just don't want to see anything happen to the people that I love. And I don't want to see anything happen to anybody. But my goodness gracious, you can't even go send your kid off to school because you got people thinking it's okay to kill them because of their color. I'm sorry. I'm going to give a definition of replacement theory. This is also from CNN.com. The definition of replacement theory is this replacement theory evolved to be a clever, systematic situation where a certain group of people felt like a certain group of people were replacing them. It says Jews who Camus did not mention evolved to be clever people in the entire Southern Hemisphere, evolved to be less smart. Okay, I'm sorry. This was that don't have nothing to do with it. Let me start here because that was part of what I took out of it. Let me start where it makes sense. Okay, excuse me for that. Here's how this bizarre theory of race replacement theory plays out. Jews trick white women into having babies with people of color. And then they trick white men into becoming transgender. All in service of making the population less white and easier to control. Sometimes they claim Jews are in cahoots with the elite, but that's often just code for Jews. Where do you get this stuff from? What? There's people who actually believe this. That people are sitting back, and there probably are, because there's a whole bunch of crazy people out here. They think people are sitting back, planning and plotting to reproduce with certain people to replace a whole race of people. This is just not true for most people. I'm telling you right now, most people are glad to live. Most people are happy to get to know somebody else, especially if somebody's different from you. You're just inquisitive as nothing else. But most people are just good people. Most people love living. They don't believe in just killing people just for the sake of it. And I've got a clip. I'm going to play this clip right now from a young man who's a college student. And I asked him some questions about race relations. I'm going to play that right now. Listen to this. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Malik. How old are you and where did you grow up?
Well, I should say my name is Malik Porter. I am 24 years old, currently be 25 at the end of each year. I grew up in many places, but towards the later years of my childhood, as you would say, I grew up in Mentor, Ohio, which is to be known a more predominantly white area.
So when you were in high school and you were in Mentor High School, was the majority of the race in Mentor High School white?
Yes. Definitely more white than more any other race that went to the school.
So you did have a few Black people, a few Asian people, mostly white though, right?
Yes.
And you were a star on the football team, right?
Yes.
So being as you were generally a popular guy, a popular Black guy, most people really liked you, right?
For the most part, yes. I mean, I was a pretty laid-back person in high school.
Mm-hmm. So would you say the climate, now you graduated in 2015, right?
2016.
2016. So the climate back then, with the majority of the school being white and you being a Black young man in the school, would you say that there was racial tension in the school, or was it pretty easy going for you?
I wouldn't say there was racial tension, more that a lot of kids growing up didn't see many Black people. Like they grew up seeing Black people, but not a lot were around. So they always just wanted to talk, really.
So were they inquisitive because their images of Black people were only on TV, and when they saw you, they just saw you? They just got to see you as a person, not so much as, oh, well, I thought Black people did this. I thought Black people did that. Did you hear a lot of that?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I would say what most people think a stereotypical young Black male is. I'm not really like that. Like, in high school, I really didn't listen to much rap music because it just wasn't my thing to listen to. I mean, I listened to it, of course, but I would like to expand my horizon with other genres of music like EDM, rock, pop, punk, all those types of genres.
So you believe that a lot of predominantly in a white area, that they expect a young black man to listen to rap music and talk with slang and maybe even have a little sag going on. Do you think that that's generally what those back in 2016, those white people pretty much thought what black men do?
I would say they thought that. It's more that just what they were exposed to, for the most part, for like music videos, that type of stuff. But they always judged you on who you were and not what other people might say you were or how you should be.
So you didn't face any outright racism at the school back when you were in the school?
I wouldn't say I didn't. It's more that, like, as young adults, I was a freshman when I first moved there. They didn't really know it was until I said something. And then that's when they realized, oh, I probably shouldn't do that, and learn why it's wrong and what other things might be wrong that I have done in the past that I shouldn't do again.
Cool. Now you're a senior at Kent State University, right? And you're a neuroscience major. And I've noticed that you're the kind of guy that has friends from all nationalities. Am I correct?
Yes.
And so you have friends that are all the way as far as Germany, and you have friends that are right down the street in Mentor, as well as small town Kent, and over across the country in California. You have friends of different nationalities, colors, races, religious beliefs, and everything that you've met at Kent State, right? So I asked you, in this climate of 2022, of all the people you know of different races and different nationality, do you think that anybody actually believes that people of different races and nationality are trying to replace the white race? Does anybody really believe that?
I would say no. That's just because I feel like kids or people who grew up like 2 to 3 years older and younger than me all grew up a certain way. And like, we always taught to be nice to each other and be respectful for each other. So that's just what we taught, just grow up with. And it's more about how they be themselves as they get older. And it's like, they can't be taught once they get a certain age. You just learn what you do, and you pick up things on your own. And if you choose to go down that route, you can't say your parents made you, because you're an adult and your parents really can't make you do anything.
This is true. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because this show really is about, generally people know that people are just people. And I'm glad to hear that young people have their heads on their shoulders really good. And like you said, it's a top thing, racism. But after you become over 18 and you get out on your own, you truly believe that you have to have your eyes open and see that people are just people. Some people are good people, some people are bad people, but people are just people, right?
I mean, it also is a little gray area when it comes to people who come to America that are from different countries, because history between one country and another always hate each other, and it's like there are generations of past history and fighting that is going to probably stay with like those people forever in their whole line or whatever country or nationality they come from. And it's like, you can't really say nothing towards that, because we don't know what they're going through or how they feel about their history, and if one country invaded or not another.
Right.
And for here, it's different because a lot of people come here to seek better lives, because we're supposed to be like this open, free society, and that's what most people come here to think. And then, like, your problems you can't run away from them. They're always going to come back to you, and you're going to meet someone that you don't like, and it's going to just hurt. Like, nothing you can do. Someone's not going to like you, you're not going to like someone. But for me, I give everyone a chance, no matter who you are, what history I might have with a relative of yours. It's about, you are not the same person as them. You think totally different. Like you said, I'm a neuroscience major, so I study the brain I want to do it for a living. And I know that no two people are the same. Even if they're twins, they're still not the same. Because, yes, they might look the same, act the same, but they have two completely different minds and consciousness.
Well, thank you, Malik, for your insight. Now, everybody, this is a 24-year-old young Black man in America, and he's got a brain that is working perfectly fine, and he knows that people generally get along. So I'm glad that you took the time to talk to us today. Thanks, Malik.
Thank you for having me.
Now, that's somebody who has their head on straight. And you know what? Generally, that's how the people in that age bracket are thinking. You know, they're not worried about the stuff that people who were born back in 1935 who are scared to have white people into relations with Black people, and then people who are coming up wondering about, well, where's the white race going? Oh my God, there's Muslims coming in the country, this, that, and other. People that are his age, and like he said, a few years older, a few years younger, they're not talking crazy. That young man that shot those people in Buffalo was not the general feeling of most people. Most people just, it's like, give yourself a chance, give people a chance. Give people a chance, because everybody does have their own mind, but everybody is human. And if you can't give somebody a chance and judge them by their character, then you are a racist. Okay? So thank you, Malik, for that. And I just got one more thing I'm going to talk about, because this gentrification is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You hear all this talk about replacement theory and Black folks is trying to replace all the white race. But I'm going to tell you, this gentrification, Black people feel like the white people are trying to take all their land that they live in and move in. And I'm telling you, and it's real. It's real. I'm going to give the definition from Merriam-Webster's about gentrification. It's a process in which a poor area of a city experiences an influx of middle-class or wealthy people who renovate and rebuild homes and businesses, and which often results in an increase in property values and taxes and the displacement of earlier, usually poorer residents. Now, this is happening in Cleveland. And anybody who says it's not doesn't have their eyes open. I talked to a friend of mine, Dolores Knight, who lives down in the 105 Wade Park area. And she's been living there for at least 35 years, if not longer. She grew up in the Glenville area. She remembers when there was just the A&P store in the Glenville area, and when you wanted to get good meat or good fruit, you'd have to go ride the bus down to the Woolworths downtown, because that's where the good food was. They had a little grocery store over there in Glenville, but they didn't have fresh fruit. They didn't have fresh meat. So you had to get on the bus and ride down there. I remember when the Glenville riots, she was there when the Glenville riots happened. And then all of Glenville just was desolate. I remember when I lived down in Glenville back in, it was the late 80s, early 90s, and there wasn't even a bank. Okay, there wasn't even a bank in the 105 St. Clair area. And there wasn't, I think there was one grocery store. It was a grocery store that just, wasn't Whole Foods. I'll just say that. But Dolores was telling me that in the process of the last 5-10 years, they have been renovating the big houses on 105 near the Veterans Administration Building, because they have renovated the vet building. And you also know that they've taken Mount Sinai out, the Mount Sinai Hospital. They have removed Huron Road Hospital, and Cleveland Clinic is buying up everything in that area. So now they've been renovating those houses, the big, huge houses in the Wade Park area, 105. And the elite, rich white people or the doctors from Cleveland Clinic are buying them. They're renovating them, and they're getting like 10-year tax abatements when they buy into them. And because they're getting tax abatements, now it's just me, I'm thinking that's probably why some of the longtime residents' property taxes are going up, because somebody has to help balance that out. If you're giving all these people tax abatements, your taxes are going to get raised if you've been living there for 45, 50 years and you don't want to sell your house. So your taxes are going to get raised. And now they even have a little police patrolman association I saw just a little while ago riding through the neighborhood. So you have joggers going through the neighborhood now, and little ladies pushing their babies in the cart. You used to be scared to even let your kids go out and play because the police wouldn't even come until somebody died down in that neighborhood or somebody got shot. So this is gentrification. So you can't even afford to live in your own neighborhood no more. It's just like down in the Huff neighborhood. The big houses they brought in, the $300,000, $400,000 houses. It's like, okay, you've been living there all this time, and if you want to get something better in your own neighborhood, you can't even afford to move there. There's a lot of new properties in Cleveland that are just outpriced for the average Joe worker. So that's what gentrification is. They're moving in. People who are wealthy are moving in and pushing the people who are considered poor or just somebody who has a regular job. Some people are working 2 jobs to support their family, but they're not making $600,000 a year. They're not bringing home $4,000 or $5,000 every paycheck. They're bringing home $400 every week, but they're going to work. They're paying their taxes. They're taking care of their family, and they're getting pushed out of their own neighborhood. That's gentrification, okay? But I'll tell you one thing. Sometimes it's good to have people move in and get the residential area better, but it's not good if you're going to move somebody out. Now, I got a clip from a business owner in the Larchmere area. She owns Our Favorite Things Boutique. Now, I remember back in 1980, I carried mail up and down Larchmere. That was my route. It was near Shaker Square. And it was kind of like a close-knit, Caucasian area. And they had some Hungarian people, I remember, that lived in that area. But as far as the business owners were concerned, there were not any Black business owners in that area. I'm sorry, there just weren't. And that was in the 80s, like late 80s. Now, this young lady, Lisa Mcgondry, she is on the merchants board. She has brought her business into the neighborhood, and there are several thriving businesses in this neighborhood of all different races. It's just a great area. But I want you to listen to this clip from her where she was talking about where her daughter lives in Columbus and how that area is changing.
In this area when my daughter, when I was a child, this was an area that she was a single mom with 3 daughters. It was a real poor area. Now people are fighting to get homes in this area. They just opened up a store. It's called the East Side Market. It's filled with Black people, white people, and it was so diverse. It was absolutely amazing to see the amount of people. My daughter's business, she sold out of her 2 Goodies popsicles by 2:00 on Mother's Day. She could leave for the day because that's how much support she gets from the community. Yes. They purchased their home at $375,000. Now, in a community where there was projects prior to that, within 1 year, the value of their home had went up. She refinanced at $516,000. Wow. It's absolutely amazing. So she has all types of people that live next to her. There's Asians, there's Blacks, there's white, but it's a gentrified area right close to downtown Columbus. And it's wonderful. And it would be nice if this area could become something like that. But it's not, and it's sad. We have a lot of work to do here in Cleveland. Amen. We have a lot of work to do to learn how to respect one another, treat each other respectfully, and just honor one another. Just humanity, just like you said. Yeah. Having grace for the next person. But we have a long way to go. Yeah. We have a long way to go.
And that's the gist of it. We have a long way to go, America. Look, I'm a nurse, and I noticed that if somebody comes in and they get a cut, the blood that comes out is always red. I have never seen black blood. I've never seen white blood. I've never seen yellow blood. I've never seen green blood. I know when I get a patient that comes in and they about to die, some people, I've had one that said, I don't want that nigger touching me. And so I had to go get another worker, a co-worker. But most people, when they get sick, they just want some help. And the same thing goes when someone comes into a new neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood that is mixed, okay? We all are different nationalities where I live. We all are different ages where I live. I'm pretty sure we have different income brackets, but everybody who lives in my neighborhood worked hard to get in this neighborhood, to buy their property, and everybody wants a good life. So I cannot understand why anybody would just assume that they're better than anybody else, because we all are born and we all must die. And in the grave, it doesn't make any difference what color you are. But it does make a difference how you treat people while you are alive. It is called humanity. You want to be treated with respect, so you should just give respect to other people. You never know. Your blessing could come in a package that is just not like you. It's just that simple. So let's get these conversations started, okay? Let's talk about some things that you're not used to talking about. Let's get the conversation opened up about race relations. And then another thing, and I'm just going to reiterate what I talked about on my first show. Get out and vote. Don't tell me your vote doesn't matter. There are people that are up in Congress right now who hate people because of the color of their skin. Your vote can vote them out. You need to register to vote, and you need to find out who's running, and you need to vote, because we can fix this mess that has been made regarding race relations. We are all human beings, people. Come on. Get yourself together and get out there and get to know somebody. Don't just assume anything. Well, that's my spiel for today. I hope that no one took offense by my show today. I also hope that somebody got a little bit of information that they did not have before. And my third hope is that people take charge of their own lives and start being more responsive to someone who is not necessarily like them. And responsive in a positive, loving, and good way. Okay? All it takes is a chance. Like Malik said, he gives everybody a chance. That's the least that you can do. All right, so I just want everybody to talk about this, subscribe to this channel so we can have more great conversations that make a difference on Phenomenal Woman Rise Up. I'm Terry K. Brown. I love you and hope to see you on the show yet again, another time. Have a great evening, everybody. I will see you next week.